And now I am going to share my screen so that you guys can also see the agenda alongside me. And I made it really big for myself so that I could see it all. And so today's focus, will eventually, I have my book and I can share my book talk. If you guys, have yours, that would be great. If not, we'll probably have some time the next time to do that. Um, but the question that I want to pose about doing the book talk and the focus of the book talk was really to experience somebody else's perspective and learn from their perspective. Why do you think that that's important? You guys can just unmute and talk. No big deal.
Oh, okay. Um, so yeah, should I share what book I thought of?
You don't have to share the book. Yeah, I'm curious, like, why do you think this is something that I put into the leadership program for us to read a book or experience something from somebody else's perspective? Why do you think that that was important?
Probably to look at empathy, maybe, because I know we talked about that a couple sessions ago. That
Yeah,
could be one.
yeah, definitely. What do you think, Johanna?
I think about the same as Savannah, and also that it just helps you like learn more because you can learn different things from other people's perspectives as long as you're open-minded to it all.
Mhm. Yeah, I do this really cool activity. And if you're ever in a space where you're managing a group of people, this is a really interesting tool. It's you ask everybody to stand in a circle and you ask everybody to take one hand. I usually go with their left hand, and I ask them to take their left hand and open their palm and put it in front of the person to their left. And so if you can imagine, everybody is standing in front of each other and there's another hand, somebody else's hand is in front of their like belly area. And then I ask them to take their opposite hand and point a finger and put it straight down into the hand that is in front of them. And so it looks like this, except this hand is not mine. And I put my finger in it. And so this is what it looks like around the circle. And the game is called gotcha. And as soon as I say that word the next time, the idea is that you're simultaneously pulling your finger out while also trying to grab the finger of the person who is in your palm. And it's a silly, fun game, and it brings a lot of humor and activity. But the idea is that this hand that is open is symbolizing an open mind, right? And if you're when you like are starting to play the game, right, you want to capture that finger, so you start to close your fingers or your hand around them. And so we can talk about how our minds, if they are open, we're more likely to put, and we use this to represent an idea, we're more likely to put an idea into an open mind, right? But like if somebody's starting to close their hand around my finger, I'm going to start to pull my finger away in order to give myself an advantage while they're also giving themselves an advantage. And so it's just, you can play it a couple of different ways, but the idea is to sort of symbolize and represent that when our minds start to close, it's less likely that I want to represent and share my ideas with you. And we know when people are around us, when they have an open mind, it feels a lot more welcoming and encouraging, and you're willing to share. And when people are closed off and they're not really willing to listen, you're less likely to share an idea with them, right? And so it's such a great way to symbolize that idea. And I'm not sure what your weekend is going to look like for the competition, but if there is an opportunity for you guys to represent and play that game, it would be really cool together, since you guys both were here and heard how to play the game, for you to try it. And even if you're with your family, like just sort of like see if you can get it set up. And the more you practice, the better it is. Savannah, what you got?
Yeah, I was gonna say Pretty sure we might have some time because I know that in the schedule we have a lot of open time, and I heard that we're also doing some sort of like a lot of community activities, especially
Yeah.
the first day that we're there. So we should, yeah, Johanna, we should definitely do that.
Yeah, and I think like that would really show leadership for anybody who is looking at what you're doing. If you guys are like, "Hey, actually we learned this game and we'd love to implement it with the group if we're willing to be a little vulnerable and take a risk, step outside of our comfort zone, use all the words that we learned through the program." That would be really cool. And it doesn't matter the age, right? Age doesn't matter. This transcends every generation, right? I like to play it with little kids because they're so fun, and we don't really talk as much about the open minds and the ideas, but it's just for fun. But the older people, oh my gosh, if you're working with I'm not sure if you're working with like the retirement community or a nursing home, but if you are, that could be really cool because I'm not sure what their level of intellects are or how well they are, but I think there's a lot of people in that generation that are a little closed-minded, and it might be fun to just sort of like experience that with them. So you can do it with your left hand, and then you can ask everybody to switch and do it with their right hand. So it's like, oh, wait, I just started to get good at like moving my fingers in the right direction. And then you switch it up, and now they're doing it opposite. And then if you have a group that's really having fun and doing well, you can ask them to cross their hand and put their hand over across on their, like, so their right hand would go in front of somebody on their left and their finger goes right down, and then it's so chaotic and fun, but it's another level, right? And so all of these activities you would do at the very easiest level, and then if they're having fun and they're engaging and doing well, then you take it up to the next level, and you can go as far up as you want. Those are 3 different levels that you can use. But if you do end up doing it, please like reach out and let me know. And like I said, doing it with a group of people that you know to practice the first time is way better than, trying to do it in front of a group of people that, this is the first time I've tried it. It's a lot easier to do it after you've practiced with people who care about you. So, yeah, you guys are right. So, perspective and understanding other people's perspective, it really allows you to explore the reasons why you think certain things and why other people experience certain things. And in today's world, we are very, very so close-minded, and it's not intentional. It's just that's how, because of the nature of social media and how the algorithms really just feed us the things that we're accustomed to. It makes it really hard to have those kind of conversations. And I know personally it can be really challenging and scary to approach somebody who thinks differently than me. Um, and and online it's incredibly hard. So I would not ever encourage you guys to take that first step. If you're willing to have a conversation with somebody who thinks differently than you, doing it in person is much, much easier than trying to do it online. There's this great podcast, if you guys listen to podcasts, and I don't think they're not making any more releases, but it's still available. It's called Conversations with People Who Hate Me. It's such a crazy name, but the whole idea behind the podcast is that the host um, would reach out to somebody who posted something negative about him on the internet, and he would have a conversation with the person. And then eventually he opened it up to anybody who had a negative interaction online, and he would have 2 people have a conversation. And every single time you would think they were so far, so polarized, but even at the end, every single time, because you got to know the human, they ended up having some sort of positive relationship, and they maybe never came to see eye to eye, but it is such a powerful listen. One of my favorites, and it's a little bit racy, but one of my favorites was about a young lady who was, I'm trying to remember if she was actually, I believe she was a young lady who accused somebody of raping her, and somebody else who posted online that she was a liar and like, how could she do that? And all of those things. And the conversation was hard, but they both were willing to have it. And it was incredible. So if you are interested in checking that out, I highly recommend listening to one or two of the episodes. So I know that it's on Apple Podcasts. I don't know if it's on Spotify, but I would guess that it probably is. All right. So did you guys both practice some gratitude between the last time we met and this time? Good. Did
Yeah,
you?
I have. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. Yes, definitely. So you did as well. Um, did you notice anything in your life change between, when you started and now? Did you notice anything?
I felt a little more relaxed.
Hmm. Yeah. You too, Johanna. Anything else?
Yeah, I have a planner that I use for my everyday life, like for my school assignments,
Yes.
for like a calendar, and there's always like it's like 2 pages. One side is like the days of the week that you have to fill out. The other side is like what I'm a like a section that says, "What are you grateful for this week? What's your greatest accomplishment this week?" And I kind of like ignored that whenever
Mm,
I fill out things, and I look back and I'm like, why have I ignored this every single time? And I try to fill it out every week as much as I can. And
yeah.
it makes me think a little bit about what I'm actually like, the fact that I should be grateful for the little things in life and appreciative, like instead of just thinking about what I could have. And
Mm,
that's what's caused me to be a little bit more relaxed. Like looking back, things I used to think that an accomplishment would be like something big,
yeah.
but um I remember that week that the first week that I started, I had this present this I don't know what it was. It was this like school showcase, and it was for I'm in AP seminar, and we had to present our latest projects to the public, and it was at the middle school, so we had to go in as high schoolers, like the role models, and just being able to talk about it and present my subject like clearly, that was my greatest accomplishment for the week. And like I said, it's the little things.
Right. And for you, that seems little, but for somebody else, that could be enormous. And so it also puts perspective in there too. So I appreciate that share. That's really great, Savannah.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it seem like it's less of a little thing, if that makes sense, and more
Yeah.
of I should view it as something that is bigger because it is a good thing.
Yeah. Yes. Johanna, what do you got to share? Anything?
I think about the same thing. It was definitely very relaxing and it's definitely warming, like to
Mhm.
yourself and to others around you. So I feel like it was great to do.
Yeah. I find that when I get caught up in my own like thoughts of this is not enough or what I could be doing more or oh no, oh no, oh no. It's just sort of grounding myself and thinking about all the things that I'm grateful for really slows that brain down and stops it in its tracks and like yes, of course you need more money. Yes, of course you want more jobs, but like what do you have? These are really good things and to just recognize that. Yeah, Savannah, go ahead.
I was that just reminded me, I one of the main things that I kind of focused on for the past few weeks when I was writing the things down in my planner was that I should also like I'm glad to have what I do now because even just last year, there are some things that I really like. I was begging to have like a car. I told myself that I would like never like all my problems would go away if I have a car, and that's not true. But like it did, it made me realize I'm like, wow, you know, you always got to be appreciative because you don't even know how much things will change in the next year.
Yeah, or how much will change when you get what you think you've always wanted, right? And that, by always,
Yeah, that too. That's what I meant.
my goodness, I know it like seems so like all my problems will be solved, everything will be better if I can only just, that mentality, that thought process, that is in all of us. And if we're always chasing the next thing, we're never going to be satisfied with what we have. And I think that it's so easy, Savannah. I think everyone who gets a journal that has that prompt on it will often just disregard the gratitude. And, because it's like, of course, I'm grateful, obviously, right? I don't need to write it down. But until we start writing it down, we don't realize how many things we have that are good. And, when we have to pause and think about, oh, well, what am I going to write down right now? It actually makes you think like, oh, yeah, yeah, of course I'm grateful, but like now I have to actually hold myself accountable for it. So I very much appreciate those shares. That's so, so powerful. And I think it's a tool and a strategy that we can bring forward with us as we get older and we try new things and we step outside of our comfort zone. Every time you feel challenged to like center back in on what you're grateful for, it will really help you be more willing to take that step and do the next thing that pushes you beyond your comfort zone. So I hope that you continue to do it. And I hope that, the next time you see something in a planner and you're like, you challenge yourself. So I'm glad that you did that. Has anybody practiced having a difficult conversation? Anything that you want to share about having that difficult conversation? Or just even not sharing about the actual difficult conversation, but like what is the hardest part about having a difficult conversation for you guys?
Um, for me, even though not all difficult conversations are conflict, I kind of always view it as conflict. If it's not
Mhm.
gonna be like, if it's difficult, then I view it as conflict. And that's something that I'm trying to work on and how to like respond well to difficult conversations, how to be sympathetic, empathetic, and then also say what I have to say too.
Mhm.
Like, I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, sometime between then. I don't know if this was really a difficult conversation, but I have a teacher and I don't know if you want us to share examples or not, but
Sure.
yeah, I had a teacher and it's for a class called Life and Work,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like a personal finance class, and it's very not cutthroat, but it's very, I don't even know how to describe it. It like
It's hard.
we're in this simulation and we have to pay our fake bills on time and
Mm.
everything like is held against us. We have to pay for everything in class. And it's very detail and time oriented and it's very overwhelming and um sometimes I like get overwhelmed by it and you know she does like these the class is just so complicated. I'm just brainwashed by thinking about it. But she we have like an overall grade from that based on how well we like pay our bills and what we do, how we
Mhm.
like are in our simulation. And mine, even though I'm a good student, my grade is and my fake credit score, all of that, it's not as high as everybody else's. And I had to tell her like in private, I was like trying to talk to her about something else. And then while I was at it, I was like, I hope you know that I'm not a bad student. And I'm like, I hope you know that I am trying and I just want to know what I can do to be kind of just recognized because
Mm.
I kind of feel that way in all of my classes. Like there's I don't know, like I'm a good student, but there's always something missing. So asking her about that in my most stressful class, that it was good to hear what she had to say. I'm not really gonna say what she had to say, but yeah.
That's great. Johanna, what do you have to share?
I feel like the most like hardest part of the difficult conversation was trying to like connect with the person. My difficult conversation I had was actually with an old friend that I hadn't talked to in a while because she ended up going to a new school in another like town.
Mm-hmm.
But when we actually started talking again a couple days ago, and I feel like it was kind of hard at first to like reconnect and like feel like comfortable again because it had been a while since we had last talked. But after a while, it got better. So it's definitely really hard at first, but if you really keep trying and try to be open to it, I felt like it was easier to connect slowly and get back into that mood.
That's great. I will tell you, for me, the hardest part of a difficult conversation is the the anticipation of what's going to happen during the difficult conversation, the a million ways that I prepare unpreparedly, like thinking about how I'm going to answer questions that will probably never get asked. And so it's that free conversation that doesn't happen, but happens completely in my head is often the hardest part. And right now, I'm really grateful that we're having this actual conversation because I have a difficult conversation coming up on Tuesday, and I have been rehearsing the conversation in my head every day, every minute, thinking about that, but remembering the protocol of like listening to what they say, not listening to respond, and then repeating what you heard them say is something that I still struggle to do. And so that I'm going to really try and take that approach. And I think the other thing that after having this discussion with you guys, the other thing that I want to focus on is not preparing for a conversation that I cannot prepare for because I don't know what they're going to say or what questions they're going to ask. And I'm curious to know if that would be helpful for you guys in the competition. Like it feels like the questions that they're going to pose to you could be seen almost like you described, Savannah. It could be a difficult conversation, not because it's conflict, but because you can't necessarily prepare for it. So how could we work on being prepared without coming up with a million ways that we can answer a question without knowing exactly what the question is going to be? I think it comes back to that same concept, right? Listen to the question, repeat the question back to them, giving yourself some time to think about your answer. And then actually, I was talking to Savannah separately about thinking of like that beginning, middle, and end to that question in your head before you start your answer to sort of keep yourself in line when you're answering the question might be really helpful. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think that what you said, I think that would definitely work for interview.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. And so a lot of these activities and strategies can relate to a lot of different places in our lives. So that is something that I hadn't really anticipated sharing, but in this conversation right here with just being the two of you, I think that might be a really good aspect. And we have some additional time. Do you want to practice with each other a little bit on sort of answering a question without having the ability to prepare ahead of time? Yeah. Okay. How about you, Johanna? Would that be something good? Okay. So me see if I can. Competition. Or oh, okay. So, how about why do you want to be Miss Maine?
So do you want us to answer that right now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, yeah, I'll go. So, something that I'm definitely working on is keeping answers a little bit shorter because I do have a lot to say, but especially with this one because I have prepared with this one a lot and it's a lot of reasons.
Yep.
So, I've been in the program for 3 years and I did it as a way to get out of my comfort zone during COVID because COVID was very tough. And I'm just glad that I stuck with that path because it's really just being part of the organization has really helped in the way that I present myself, most importantly. That's what I've taken out of it. And I'd love, to be able to represent that for an entire year. And because especially with it being my senior year and it's my last year before I head off to college, before I move out of the state of Maine, I would love to get that last hurrah to really focus on being active in the community, having fun, being involved in the system, and just also being able to, inspire other people to do anything they set their mind to, as well as being able to tell my story too.
Hmm. Johanna, do you have any thoughts or feedback for Savannah in that answer?
Mm, I don't really think I saw anything wrong with it. I thought it was a really good answer. I
Mhm.
think like maybe sometimes like maybe using like other words like when you're talking about like wanting to like be more like involved with your community, you could always just say like things like I just want to like get out, like want to be out there around like your community, like more like not just in it, but like around the community and like
Yeah,
things
I
such
get
as
what you mean because like
yeah.
since because like I am like we're obviously already involved in our community,
Mhm.
but as Miss Maine's teen being able to be involved throughout Maine. That's what I
Yeah.
meant to put that part in there after saying like, how this is my last year in Maine, so I
Mhm.
want to be able to be around Maine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's fine. I thought it was really good though.
Yeah, and I
Thank
think,
you.
I think that's one of the things that we run into is that we have so many different things that we want to include in our answer, but you did a nice job at keeping it concise and keeping it focused and answering the question that was given. Johanna, do
All
you
right,
want
thank
to
you.
answer the same question or do you want me to give you a different question so that you didn't have time to prepare it?
I could do either or.
Okay. I'll kind of stay in the same idea. What would you do if you won the Miss Maine teen pageant?
I think probably the first thing I would do is try to like get my thing across, like my CSI. I try to promote it even more than what I have already done. Probably like put posters around towns and like, I mean, I live really far up north, so of course I'm not close to where most of Maine is. Like I'm not smack down in the middle of it. But I feel like I try to travel downstate and try to get more involved with the rest of the state of Maine than what I already am.
Savannah, what is your feedback or thoughts on her answer?
I don't really have any feedback. That was good. I like how yeah, no, it was good. I'm really like I cannot give feedback, especially like to my competition. Not my, you know what I mean, not my
Yeah,
competition.
yeah. I would say I would not use any abbreviations. So you said CSI, and I'm sure that the judges will know what that is, but remember that there will be people who don't know what that stands for. So this is a good good piece of advice for everyone when you are answering questions. Try not to use acronyms. Savannah, what do you got?
I actually did think of something. It's not really, it's more like something that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
So when you said that you were gonna hang up posters around the state, I'm curious to know like what kind of posters. I'm kind of like curious to see like what you would do
Yeah.
and what you would be promoting, even though I know you're CSI.
Mhm.
And I
So
know that, oh, sorry.
yeah. So the posters I'd probably put around are mostly posters just talking about what my CSI is about. And then I'd probably put like an email or number, and I'd put like what my Instagram account is. And so people can kind of get an idea of what it is. And if they're interested in getting involved, they can contact me at any time so they can learn more about it.
I like that you would put like your Instagram address and not necessarily your personal, like your email and stuff like that. So just, in thinking about who might or might not respond, really thinking about how you really would like people to contact you so that you're not getting crazies or people who are outside of, really wanting to help and just being sort of a nuisance. So thinking Instagram is a good way to connect the first way, the first time, and it's a little less personal than your email. And that might be the other thing that I encourage you both to be thinking about is, creating a personal email that is not totally identifiable, but identify like maybe Miss Maine 2024, Miss Maine Teen 2024 at Gmail. You can
I
create
think we have
something.
to do that. Yeah. I
Okay.
think it's like mandatory.
Yeah, so that way it's not like it wouldn't carry and be personal to you later. That might be a good thing to do. Uh okay, so then my thoughts in both of your answers were that the repeating back, you didn't do that, and that's fine. But if that would be a way for you to get some time and pause and really thinking about what the question is and repeating it back so that you're hearing it again in your own words is a good thing to do. Savannah.
Yeah, I don't mean to correct or anything like that,
Yeah,
but I
no.
remember no, I've been like told by some people to like it's you shall not repeat the question, it's prohibited and like but
Okay.
others
Good
like they say that
thoughts.
you do. So I think that like I think it's good to repeat the question, but just out of habit,
Yeah.
that's why it can be frustrating sometimes when different people tell you different things of what you should do and what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, and if it's a new pattern or a new behavior for you, it could really mess you up. So like, like all of a sudden trying to do something that's new to the way you've been practicing or thinking about things could mess with how you're handling it. So I agree. I agree. As soon as I said that, like, oh, you guys didn't do that, I
yeah.
was like,
No,
oh, I
it's
wonder if you
okay.
can actually do it.
No, it's okay. It like I do know what you mean about like finding some sort of way to
Pause.
repeat the question and pause and collect the information without actually physically saying it. I know what you mean.
Do you
And it
think
makes sense.
are you able to actually pause like after, they ask that question? Is that are there like is that frowned upon or anything like that? Because I don't think that that would be a terrible thing either. Or are you timed? What
Yeah.
how do the questions sort of go?
Well, oh, sorry, Johanna. I saw that you had your mic off. So if you were gonna say anything, you can go.
I've done many interviews in the past because our town does like local pageants,
Oh,
but from what I know, like it's okay to like pause for like 5 seconds, like once they ask the question, just so you can quickly think about it, as long as you answer it. And like even if you're not sure how to answer, as long as you come back with just saying like, I don't know much about this topic, but I'm
mm.
interested in stuff, like that will give them a chance to know that you actually care and understand what's going on.
That's a great response, especially acknowledging that you may not have a lot of information rather than spouting information off that like doesn't necessarily relate. I think your honesty and your, transparency is important. I like that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, as long as you're not like when you're in the conversation, whether it's the interview or the onstage question, you don't like as long as you're not like sitting there being like, let me
Right,
think.
right.
But for I'm not honestly sure how it's gonna go for onstage question, which I'm a little nervous about that. I don't think we've really gone over like that at all with anybody who's been working with us like
Mhm.
in our system. And because I know it has different circumstances than the interview, and I think it's supposed to be timed.
Okay.
So maybe if there's a way, I know that you said that you don't really know much about pageant or competitions, but if there's a way to work on mindset with that too, that would
Okay.
be awesome.
Yeah. The one thing that I will tell you is that if you take your pointer finger and like any one of your fingers and just sort of like rub that, but not rub it really tight, but like rub it so that you can feel the ridges on your fingers, that can kind of ground you. And it's not like an obvious thing, but it like just grounds you for a minute and in the present rather than like being way up here in your head. And so just sort of like taking your hands and rubbing your fingers really, really lightly so you can feel it, grounds you into being present. And
Yeah.
that's one of the hardest parts of like being on the spot, being in a spotlight and having to perform in a way that is definitely risky. It like you want to get out of your head and into the present and
Yeah.
ground it as much as
Because
possible.
yeah, oh sorry. On stage question is really like what I'm the most nervous about. Last year they actually forgot my question. I was supposed to go second out of all of us. There's like 12 of us and
Mhm.
I walk up and they're like, "We don't have your question. Come back last." And um it was pretty scary, but I actually did feel like more prepared going last than going second and having
Mhm.
that time to be backstage and just not be like, Savannah, do not think about anything. You're literally just like, yeah. So I just, even though I like, I was able to pull it off. I'm still, that's my biggest fear is on stage question.
Yeah, what do you have to share, Johanna?
So yeah, that is something I have worried about, but I think from what I've heard, I think from what I remember from the meeting, it's a 20-second time period for you to answer. And I believe they don't start the timer till once you start speaking is when they start the timer, so they give you a chance to think about it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. I wasn't there for most of the workshop, so I
Yeah.
don't really know really anything that they went over.
Well, then
Because I
that's
know
good
a
that
lot
you
has changed too from last
asked
year.
that question. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
great.
I don't like I wasn't did they say if there was like a bell or anything, like once you reach the time limit?
Um, I can't remember if they said if there was going to be a noise. It was either they said there was going to be like a little like ring or some like the person was just going to cut you off. Like they're just going to take the microphone and be done with it. I can't remember which one it was. I hope it's the ring.
It's okay. Yeah, because hopefully that just wouldn't be good if they just take it from you mid.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the cut like for them cutting you off was for interview and like the ring was for the on stage question.
Yeah, that makes more
Yeah,
sense.
that makes more sense.
Yeah. Well, and I can imagine that that's nerve-wracking. So the other thing that I will encourage you guys to do is to like not think of the the experience as being hard, right? And being something that you're worried about, but changing your perspective about what it is and saying, okay, this is something that I'm looking forward to. I am excited to share what I want to say. This is my time to shine. And I am looking forward to it. And so if you shift what you're saying about that experience, it might make it a little less nerve-wracking, a little less scary because you're right. It's intimidating, it's scary, but it really is your time to shine and your time to share the things that are important to you and what is inside your heart. and they need to see it and you want them to see it. So that might be another way to sort of help reduce the anxiety, is to like shifting how you're seeing it. Okay, so if you guys did either of you interview a leader, and did you learn something from the leader that maybe you want to incorporate or include in your life?
I didn't necessarily interview a leader, but I have over the past few weeks, I have talked to some leaders and that I know because there's
Yeah.
people that I like, and I, whenever I ask them questions, I consider that me learning from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you take away anything that you were like, oh, I really like that how they do that, or this is something that I want to embody?
Oh, all the time. I always look at how people present themselves and
Mm-hmm.
why they present themselves the way they do. And even though I know that like nobody's like perfect, I just, if they ever like, let's say if someone gives me advice, I always I always listen to everything that everybody tells me because it's being told for a reason. And sometimes it can be hard, like for example, like I said with the interview, when a lot of people tell me different things. But um no, whenever a leader talks to me about anything, I, regardless of how I take it, I always listen to what they have to say and keep it kind of like in my mind.
Mm. How about you, Johanna?
Yeah, the same. Like I haven't really like had the opportunity to speak to one, but I have it was probably like a month ago, but so I'm in the Olympia Snow Women's Leadership Institute, and we had our spring forum recently, and it's pretty similar to our fall forum where there's three guest speakers, each leaders who have done different things in their lives. And I think one thing I've always taken away every time that we've had a speaker was that, like, even though they all had faced so many different hard things, they never gave up and they just
Mm.
kept going no matter what other people said to them or what happened. They just kept believing in themselves and going. And I think that was a really big piece that I always took away because it just felt like very like good to know that it's okay to like keep going despite what others think.
That's awesome. I think, yes, I think a lot of times leaders are faced with a lot of challenges, and the ability to continue on even through dark moments and challenges that are outside of your ability to complete is really, really valuable. I appreciate those. I too think you're right, Savannah, in like I'm talking to people a lot all the time, and again, I want to reiterate that a leader is not just somebody with a title, right? So like you guys are talking to your parents every day. Those are leaders, right? And so anybody that you're talking to can be a leader. So, for me, when I think about leaders and having conversations with people, I feel like when I'm in conversation with anybody, I'm learning something and I'm gaining something from that experience. And so what can I take away? And I think for me, what I want to make sure that I'm always taking away is making sure that that person felt listened to and heard. And so I think that is the thing that I want to make sure that I continue to do. Okay, so book talk, but before we do, I want to just pop into what we're doing in the last session, the last meeting. We're going to focus on why we did this, what you learned about yourself, what you're going to bring forward, moving forward this with this pageant, moving forward, whether you are Miss Maine teen or not. What is your goal for leadership? I will have a survey, and then from that survey, I will be sending certificates out, and then I will be sharing um, two other activities that will be available to you to access at any point after the session. And then there's always, why is this not going the right way? Oh, and then there's always these other activities, if you haven't done them, that are available for you to do. Oh, Bailey's here. She says she was going to be late. I'm glad she's here now as we move into our book talk, the final part of today. Hey Bailey, we're gonna share if you have a book and you want to share the book with us, it's a book talk time. And if you don't, that's totally fine as well. So the book talk format is the idea is like, why did you choose the book? What was the book about? Why should somebody else read it? And if you want to follow this format, the title and the author, described why you liked it, brief summary, maybe share a quote and tell them where you can find the book. So I am going to start so that you guys can get a sense of what it feels like, what it looks like, and then if you have your book, you can absolutely share. So this was not on the book list. It is something that I was listening to a podcast and it really resonated with me. I currently have a teenage son and he is a sophomore in high school. Now he's going to be a junior. And so this book really was something that I wanted to learn about. So the book is called Hi. And of course, I have a background on. So Hi, and it is written by a father and a son, Nick and David Sheff, and they have written other books. Nick is the son, and he has been through some incredible, harrowing addiction experiences, and his father, David. There's movie about it and a couple of different books that they have written. But what I liked about this book is that it is written from a teen to a teen. In order to help teens decide with information how they want to answer the questions about, do you want to get high? And the catchphrase is just say no, right, from Nancy Reagan, but this one focuses on just say KNOW, so just say no. And there is one quote that I want to read to you, and it is, make a plan. What happens when you're faced with the choice to do drugs or not in a more direct way? If you enter a room with a bunch of people smoking pot and you're offered a joint, you have two options, saying yes and saying no. In that charged situation, you might go for it only because you feel the pressure to do so. You may want to develop strategies in advance for getting through a night without using. And I just thought that that was so powerful because maybe it's not with drugs, but it's been another experience where you've been faced with a choice, and in a relaxed state, you would make a very different choice than if you were in an anxious state or a pressure state. And so I think it's a great read. It's an easy read, and every teenager and every person who cares about the people that they love should read it. So that's my book talk. Anyone else want to share a book?
Yeah, I'll share a book. First of
Okay.
all, that book talk was really good. I really appreciate the concept of that book.
Mhm.
But my book is a book that I haven't read recently, but it's one that I always fall back on, that I consider my favorite book, and it's Of Mice and Men. I'm
Mm,
sure it's a classic. Everyone
yep.
has either read it or will read it in school. And I read it sophomore year, and at first when I read it, or when I was like hearing about what we were going to be reading in school, I honestly thought they would be boring because, it's not modern, and it's about the Great Depression, which I like It's something that I'm glad that I didn't live through, and that sounds really bad, but it's not really my cup of tea when it comes to reading. And but when I was introduced, like, to the simplicity of the book, it's about, like, the 2 main characters. One is, like, has a mental disability, and then
Mhm.
the other one is does not, and the guy with the mental disability kind of got them kicked out of their farming job, and then it follows their journey to find, like, the American dream, as they say, as getting jobs on another farm, and it kind of follows the perspective of both of them. The, um, the one with a mental disability and one with not, and it shows at the time how people with mental disabilities were kind of treated back then, and especially shows how they're misunderstood. And that's really important to me because that's a lot like what my community service initiative really focuses on. That's like um
The
the
focus.
why behind it. Yeah. And the book, I remember like it's very simple. It pretty much just takes place on their farm job. There's like 5 characters, but I remember like to this day, I'm gonna be a senior and I read it going into my sophomore year. And I still remember it. I still remember the movie, I still remember the book. If anything, I remember the book more than the movie.
Mhm.
And um it made me realize that like the simplicity of it all can still make a good story if you have the right layout of it, like with the perspectives and everything.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Johanna or Bailey, do you guys have a book to share?
I can share.
Sure.
So I actually read this book for a school project recently, but it's our choice of what book we read. The book I read was called The Stand-In by Lily Chu. I really like this book just because it's like a romance book, but it also had like a bunch of other things to it and like lessons, and I just really enjoyed that. In the book, this girl named Gracie, she gets fired by her old job guy, but she was kind of happy about it because he was kind of like a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
But when she was walking around one day at the end of the day, a car stopped by, and it just so happened to be a very famous Chinese actress asking her to pretend to be her at certain events so she could have a break from everything because she was going through tough times too. And throughout that time, like at first Gracie was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. That's like a bad thing." But then when she really realized that she wanted to do it for her mom's sake, so she can get her mom to a better nursing home, she went and did it. And then she realized that she made friends through it with celebrities, and she had so much fun. The guy, though, really hated the idea of her pretending to be his friend, he's also a celebrity, an actor. And at first, he was always like, "I don't understand why you're letting this girl pretend to be you." And he was just always angry and trying to fight with her. And then eventually, she like snapped at him and said, like, "Hey, like I know like you don't want me doing this job, but she chose me. You gotta get over it." And then they became friends eventually. And then she realized she was slowly falling in love with him. And then they did end up together in the end of the book. But there was so much conflict between like characters. And at one point in the book, she thought when she went back to the hotel where they were staying, so people wouldn't get suspicious of like someone pretending to be the celebrity, that the dude and the celebrity were talking about her, like outing them out to the paparazzi, saying that she was pretending to be them. But it turned out it was actually they were talking about their like the lady that helps run things with the celebrity. She does everything for her. She's like somewhat of her manager, but not.
Personal assistant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so she had ended up running away, but then when she realized that it was a mistake, she still didn't want to go back. But then she ended up going back because of when she went to visit her mother one day. She figured out that that celebrity just so happened to be her half sister that her mother had to leave behind in China a long time ago.
Wow.
Issues. So I feel like it was a bunch of like sudden like plot twists and like a bunch of crazy things. But I feel like the like main character's development throughout the story is what she learned from not just like the crazy incident with like being half sisters with a celebrity, but also learning all this information between her and the guy she fell in love with. Because even though they fought a lot at first, and they still fought sometimes at the end, there was a lot of times where they both learned back and forth from each other. And I feel like one part that I really remember the most was when she was pretending to be that famous actress at a children's event for at a hospital. a child was really inspired by her, and she just felt so guilty because of she felt bad having to lie to a child that she was the celebrity when she wasn't.
Hmm.
And she even expressed that to the guy, and that was also another reason why she didn't want to go back in the first place. But she did go back to help them just because she knew that the actual celebrity was having mental issues, and she really cared for them because she had grown a bond through them. So I think it was a really good book, and I would totally suggest it. I don't really have any quotes because the book's not in front of me, but
It's okay.
it's definitely a good read. I found it at BAM in Bangor, so
It was
it's,
called The Stand-In, right?
yes, The Stand-In by Lily Chu.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Bailey, I'm gonna guess you probably don't have a book with you, so.
Actually, I do.
Oh, fantastic. Would you please share?
So, my book is called Anger is a Gift by Mark. I think it's Shiro. I will hold it up. I chose it because the events and the main character were something that I could not relate to at all for multiple reasons. I don't know what it's like to be Black. I don't know what it's like to come from a poorer neighborhood. I don't know what it's like to be openly gay. And I don't know what it's like to have to be in a situation where my anger is a gift, because I was always taught that anger was something you should be ashamed of and you should get rid of and just hide it if you can. So it intrigued me a lot, and that's why I chose it. And the summary, without giving too much away, because I would like you guys to read it, is he's starting his I think his sophomore year of high school, and they've implemented random locker searches, and then the school officer gets very violent, and then they implement metal detectors, and that goes wrong too, and things just keep spiraling more and more out of control, and people refuse to take responsibility for what happened, and they refuse to admit that they're being racist. And it very much tackles the topic of systemic racism and, well, white ignorance, I believe, because this is a very realistic book, and I felt very, I'd say, ashamed of myself for not knowing at first how common this was, that these are people's realities, and I've never even heard of something like that other than briefly onto the internet, if that makes sense. So I would
Yeah.
highly recommend it. What was the other?
Do you
Yeah,
have a
and
quote?
I do have a few quotes. The first quote that I really liked, so this woman, his mother, is talking about, well, they say this in the very beginning of the book. His father was shot and killed for the same systemic racism reason. And the mother said, I felt so terrible about that, not because I was sad or angry, but because I didn't channel that anger into anything. I just let it grow until it consumed me. And then later in the book, after another very terrible thing happens, someone says to a crowd of people, we are angry, we are in mourning, we are tired, because stuff like that happens to them all the time. And I think it was very enlightening, and I highly recommend it.
And where did you get it? Were you able to get it at your library?
No, I bought it off of Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. It's such a good book. I also highly recommend it. And it was eye-opening for me too, Bailey. So don't beat yourself up too much about it. I mean, that's the whole point of reading these books, is to expose ourselves to experiences that we would never ever experience, so that we talked about why it's important at the beginning today, and it's important so that we can experience other people's perspectives. Johanna, what do you got?
What was the book called again?
Oh, it's called Anger is a Gift.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, very quickly, I wanted to add a remark that Savannah made that
Yeah.
I very connected to because I've been out of school for a couple of years now, but there are so many books that I was assigned to read that I think I would have actually enjoyed if I hadn't been assigned to read them by a teacher, because you have to read it and then reread it and then analyze it and look at quotes and look at symbolism. One very good example of that is Frankenstein. I do think I could have enjoyed that story if they didn't go so deep into themes and character development and blah, 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 blah.
I resonate with that so very, very same. Yes, there's so many books that we could definitely enjoy highly if we didn't have to also summarize and debrief and challenge and do all the things. So, all right, my friends, I will see you in 2 weeks, and it will be 1 week before you are in competition. So I'm very excited for all of you, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And there's nothing that is assigned between now and the next 2 weeks. And we're just going to check in and talk about why we did the work and what we want to do to move forward with the work that we've done. So I look forward to seeing all of you and hearing how things are going for you. So enjoy your next 2 weeks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, friends.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
See you then.